even come up to the alim afterwards and say, Maulana, you gave a nice talk, Make dua Allah gives them hidayat. May Allah give us hidayat. Why are we so ready and so hasty to look at the talk and see how it fits on the next man, but we never look at what is being said and how it fits on us and how it fits on us. That's why we make decisions sometimes that are very selfish. We only look at our own interests. For example, when Iraq was conquered, then Iraq is a very fertile place. Agriculture, you do very well there in as far as agriculture is concerned. And what transpired there was some of the soldiers who were involved in the battle, they came to Umar radiallahu anhu and they said that, "Oh Amirul Mu'mineen, because we were involved in the battle, we the ones who put our lives at stake, we the ones who took the risk, we want you to divide this very fertile land between us. We want it for ourselves." And they had a right to make the claim. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, "Listen, I don't begrudge you. I mean, you put your life on the line, you were in the forefront. The people sitting back in Medina or the Muslims to come later, they didn't make any effort. However, let's look for a solution where you will benefit and others will benefit also." And that's supposed to be our approach in life. That's why they say today that the world needs another Umar. The world needs another Umar. Because this was the thinking of the Muslims. And it was never individualistic. It was never selfish. Live and let live. How I can benefit and others can benefit as well. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, okay, do like this. You take the land, but pay a tax on whatever profits you make. You'll benefit from the profits, and the general public will pay from the tax because it will go into the Baytul Mal, it will go into the treasury. So the scholars write that we are so busy pursuing our own selfish interests that we even forget to realize that what are we leaving for the generations to come? What legacy are we leaving? And I'm not talking about the financial legacy that I hid so much uplang under the mattress, or I've got stashed in that account. We're talking about a spiritual legacy. What legacy of deen are we leaving for the generations to come? Are they going to be able to find something upon which they're going to build? Or are we going to continue to weaken ourselves by our infighting, our bickering, our petty issues, our immature behavior, that when the next generation come, rather than making dua for us, they will curse us. Allah talks about those who make dua for their forefathers in the Quran. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا بِالْإِيمَانِ. When they realize the effort that you made for them, and when they realize the sacrifice that you had undergone, they make dua for you constantly, that Allah forgive them, and they honor your legacy, and they try and emulate your actions and follow in your footsteps. But we never focus on it from that perspective. We always look at it from the perspective of my own money, my own financial legacy, my own children. What about the community as a whole? And look at the spiritual angle. You have Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, who's a Nabi. His father was a Nabi, Ishaq alayhi salam. His grandfather was a Nabi, Ibrahim alayhi salam. His son was a Nabi, Yusuf alayhi salam. Nowhere in the history of humanity will you find an example like this. So many Anbiya in one house. So many Anbiya in one house. Yet when he is on his deathbed, what does he say to his sons? Allah mentions in Surah Baqarah, أَمْ كُنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءَ إِذْ حَضَرَ يَعْقُوبَ الْمَوْتِ إِذْ قَالَ لِبَنِيهِ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. This is a Nabi. Yet he's asking his children, who are you going to worship after I die? He was worried about their iman. He was worried about their spirituality. He was worried about their salvation in terms of the akhirah and in terms of the eternal life to come. Do we have this concern? My child's education, my daughter's wedding, my investment, my savings, my house must be paid off. All of that is important. All of that is necessary. But what about the spiritual legacy? What kind of spiritual legacy are you leaving behind for your children? One day Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, he asked Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala a question, and he said, "Oh Allah, from the entire creation, who is the most beloved to you?" And listen to the response of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala said, "That person who is saddened by the slightest misfortune of the next person." That person who is saddened by the slightest misfortune of the next person. If your neighbor or your cousin or somebody in your community is going through a small difficulty, it makes you sad. That's the most dearest of all people to Allah. Today our situation unfortunately is exactly the opposite. His business is not doing well. Yeah, it serves him right. I always thought he was involved in some unda danda. I always thought he was involved in some backdoor business. We have hasad. We have enmity. We take pleasure and we take delight in the misfortune of others. Whereas Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is saying, the person who is most beloved to me is that person who doesn't sleep well at night because his brother is not sleeping well at night. That if my brother is restless, if my neighbor is worried, if somebody in my community has got a difficulty or a hardship, then it's not his difficulty only, it's mine as well. Al-mu'minuna ka jasadin wahid. The believers are like one body. The stomach doesn't say that the eye is sore, it's the eye's problem. The whole body takes the pain. The whole body is restless. The whole body is occupied. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu used to say something very amazing. He used to say, there is zakat on wealth. We all know. You must give 2.5% of that wealth which is zakatable. But there's also zakat of the body. There's also zakat of the body. And his companions used to ask him that what is the zakat of the body? Oh, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu used to say the zakat of the body is you must take the problems of other people and make it your own problems. Now our involvement only, we want to find out what's the problem there between husband and wife so we can give the latest samachar, we can give the latest news. Hot off the press, we involved in the gossip mill. So we act like very pious. No, maybe you want to help. What's happening here? Can you tell us what's the problem? What's the affair? And then as soon as we get all the information, Tarikabar, but I don't like to say this. I'm only telling you. I'm only telling you. And then that person says, I'm only telling you. So we only involved in it for the gossip element. We only involved in it because we got some maqsad behind it. Whereas Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu used to say that to make somebody else's problem your own problem, that is zakat of the body. That is zakat of the body. This is profound incident. Wallah, what a great incident. This great Shaykh and the spiritual mentor, and we must have heard his names many a times, Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayh. So one day he was traveling with all his khadims, with his entourage, with all of his servants. And it was a very cold night. It was bitterly cold, and there was a severe wind, and there was this chill in the air, and they were really suffering. And they were looking for some place where they could take refuge, And they found this old building, dilapidated building. It had no door. So they thought to themselves, well, it's still better than being totally out in the cold. So they went into the building. It was somewhat better, but it was still very cold because the wind was coming in through the entrance. There was no door. It was an old dilapidated building. So they went to sleep, but obviously they were restless in their sleep. Every few minutes they were waking up because that cold wind was still gushing in. Finally, they fell into a deep sleep. And then when they woke up at the time of Fajr, they realized, hey, there's no wind coming in. Why is that? When they went to investigate, they were the servants. They came to do his khidmah. But they found Ibrahim bin Adham rahmatullah alayh had taken his body and put it in the entrance, and he stood there the entire night, withstanding the full force of the wind, so that his companions could sleep in peace. Where is that evaporated? That was the spirit of Sahaba. And that was the legacy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One day a pious man, it was winter, and he was sitting with no jacket, with no extra covering. So somebody said to him, Sheikh, we know you have a jacket, why don't you wait? He said, you know what? I am not so wealthy that I can buy jackets for all those who can't afford jackets so that they cannot suffer from the cold. So every now and then, for a short period of time, I take off my jacket and I shiver for a while just so that I can identify with the pain that they are going through, so I never forget that they are suffering. Just so that I can identify with the pain that they are going through. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man masha fi hajati akhihi hatta yuthabbitaha lahu, adallahu Allahu azza wa jal بخمسة وسبعين ألف ملك يصلون له ويدعون له إن كان صباحا حتى يمسي وإن كان مساء حتى يصبح." When you take one step in the direction of assisting your fellow Muslim brother, what does Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala do? Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sends 75,000 angels who make dua to Allah to forgive you, who make dua to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on your behalf. If you went in the morning, they make dua for you until evening. And if you went in the evening, they make dua for you until morning. Such is this one step in the direction of assisting someone. And then the hadith says that every step that you take in the direction of assisting a fellow person, a fellow human, Allah forgives one sin and Allah elevates your status in Jannah by one. This is such a beloved thing to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma narrates a hadith, Inna lillahi khalqan khalaqahum li hawaijin nas. From the creation there are those people whom Allah has created that people go towards them. People feel inclined to go towards them, to ask them to assist. So there are such people in every community that the other people know, if I go to him, he is such a person, he will assist me. يَفْزَعُ النَّاسُ إِلَيْهِمْ فِي حَوَائِجِهِمْ. And what's the reward for such people? That you are so easygoing, you are so approachable, you are so big-hearted, you are so generous. Today we're generous with our money, but we're not generous with our time or our spirit. It's easy to give a check. Here's my zakat, here's my lillah. I'm doing for my community. That masjid there, I gave the carpets. That madrasa there, I'm sponsoring one ustad's salary. You're giving your money, Allah will reward you. But the Nabi of Allah was generous in his time. We got one wife, he had 9. He was generous in his spirit, willing to contribute and to assist. And yet he had the responsibility of the whole ummah on his shoulders. It's nothing compared, or what the responsibilities we have is nothing compared to what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. So those people who are so easygoing, who are so approachable, who are so big-hearted, who are so compassionate, that people flock to them knowing that this man will assist me. What's the reward for them? أُولَٰئِكَ الْآمِنُونَ مِنْ عَذَابِ اللَّهِ. These people are protected from the punishment of Allah in this dunya as well as in the after. And the scholars have written that if you are such a person, don't think you doing the next person a favor. Allah is doing you a favor by sending these people to you so that you can become the recipient of that benefit. Today we say, but he just came last week, now he's here again. He just came last week, he's here again. This person is always bugging me. He's always troubling me. He wants to know, he's always asking me for some need or the other. He's not bugging you, he's becoming a means of you securing protection from the punishment of Allah. Securing protection from the wrath and the anger of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, when Allah intends good for a person, He makes other people in need of the assistance of that person. When Allah intends good for a person, then He makes other people in need of the assistance of that person. There's a remarkable incident in Hayatus Sahaba that the great cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he was sitting for i'tikaf. And i'tikaf is such a great ibadah that for every day that you sit for i'tikaf, Allah distances you, by one trench from the fire of Jahannam. And the trench of Allah is like the distance between the skies and between the heaven and the earth. So every day you sit for i'tikaf, Allah is taking you away from Jahannam. And Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhuma was sitting for i'tikaf with Sahaba in Masjidun Nabawi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So imagine what a great act. So one Sahabi walks in, and you could see from his face, he was in deep concern. He was very worried. Sometimes you can just look at a person and you can see that this person is in some difficulty. Like one alim told me that in today's world that we live in, half the world is oppressed and the other half is depressed. Half the world is oppressed and the other half is depressed. It's a reality. Allah protect and save us. So Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he saw the Sahabi and he could see the man was in difficulty. So he stood up and he went to him and he said, "My brother, what's wrong?" So the man said, "So and so, I owe him money. And it has come for me now, the time is up, I have to pay him, he has a right to claim, but I don't have the money. I thought I would have it, but I don't have the money. And now I don't know what to do because it's time to repay and he's asking for his money and I don't have the money." So Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhu said to him, "I know him very well, he's a friend of mine. Maybe if I speak to him, he'll be a bit lenient and he might extend the repayment period." So the man said, "I'll be most appreciative. If you can do that, it will make my life much easier." Next minute he sees Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhu standing up, taking his shoes and walking towards the door. So he said, "Where are you going? I thought you'll do it after Eid, when your i'tikaf is over. Why are you going now?" He said, "My brother, listen, you have a need." And then he pointed towards the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he said, "I heard my Nabi saying that to go out and take one step to assist your Muslim brother is better than sitting 10 years for i'tikaf." Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhuma broke his i'tikaf so that he could just assist a Muslim brother who was in a spot of bother. He could assist someone who was in a bit of difficulty. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was